Yes, you know, it's always and even exactly. So you don't have to make this small, but all that's yes. I know that, but so I was trying to find what's like the business has a business policy. All about it. Wonder. No, I actually that's what happens. We had yes, exactly. So
Questa è una the closing tax, so and we don't stop training. Follow it. It's so good.
Okay.
Or we're just like talking, or what's the?
So the questions are supposed to start a dialogue. Yes. So it's supposed to be not only answering the questions, but actually commenting on others' answers and to keep it moving. Not a strict format.
I use this, right? Just so
If you want to use it, that's good. If you don't want it, that's fine. Yes.
How's it going?
fine. I'm very tired.
Me too.
It's like
Yes.
first time that I came to this kind of events. I have more than a decade working in issues, but I never came for this kind of events.
Hello,
Haley, nice to meet you.
thank you. I'm Hero.
Nice to meet you.
Hi,
Hello.
Lucia,
Nice to meet you.
for Central America. Guatemala.
Where are you from?
Oh, Indonesia. From here?
I live in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And every the whole section is going to be live stream. So if you want to rewatch it or like it's going to be there in okay. Should we try to make the best? Yeah, sorry. Hi everyone, we're about to start with the panel. So please, I ask you to kindly take your seat as we're about to start. Hi. Okay. So,
Yes, with one.
in case
Or they can
one
have. Yeah.
Two and two. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Hi everyone, and are we live yet? Okay, perfect. Hi, and welcome to this amazing panel on business security and the climate movement. Here with us we have great speakers, and I have to put their names and their bios because I do want to introduce them as properly as I can, because they are so great and so inspiring. It is going to be a really meaningful dialogue in a way that we have much diversity. We have many voices that are representing different contexts, different backgrounds, and we're here to learn all about that. So let me just put everything here. So yeah, sorry, I will introduce myself first. I will be the moderator, and I have the honor to be handling this panel in the way that we're going to have some really interesting questions. But I'm sure Bertello, Vice President of the International Youth Conference. And here with us, we also have Lucia Ichu, which is who is a Maya Iche. She's the coordinator at Black and Indigenous Degradation Movement and Advocacy International from Festivales Solidarios. And we also have Haley Campbell, who is the co-executive director of Care About Climate. And we also finally have Hero Abrila, who is the chairman of BPAN, which stands for Barisan Pemuda Adat Nusantara. I'm hoping I get that pronunciation right, which is the Indigenous Youth Front for the Archipelago in Indonesia. So yes, this panel is mainly about addressing challenges that are posed to security and peace by climate and environmental impact. We will focus more on the collaboration and community building, community mobilization, and to start off with our panel, the idea is to start with a question on what specific security and peace challenges do you see among your community, do you see among youth in vulnerable communities that face the result of climate change and the environmental degradation? What are your experiences? Where is the story? And if you want to introduce yourself a little bit on any background that you want to address the audience, that's great too.
Sakariki Wanogel, Lucy Julen Ubi, in Ab Chimekinha, Bashir Kayatla. Hello everyone, I am Lucy Chu, I am Indigenous teacher woman as the country as today we know as Guatemala. This is the colonial name for our territory. We recognize this as Kayala because it means in English the paradise. So we became from that. And I want to share a brief because speak about climate change became for an indigenous community is too much. It means our life. I began to organize in my community, in my town, around a decade ago. I have, at that moment, I think that I have 20 years old or something like that. And I decided to organize and join to the movement of my community, of my indigenous organizations, because we did a massacre in our town. And that's the reason why I'm here. Because the Guatemalan army killed 7 brothers who defend the territory against the privatization of the electricity in our territory. Because in Guatemala, the whole services are private. Even if we became from Guatemala and we harvest a lot of water for making electricity for the whole continent, we pay a very expensive taxes for that. So I began to organize, but we decided to do using art to defend the territory. We began to organize itinerant caravans around the country because we have the possibility to create and imagine different ways to fight and build the future. Because we are not the only thing, we are not the only what the government wants. We are resilient. We have the possibility to create different worlds, and that's the reason why I decided to create a collective in Guatemala. We join defend the territory because we have to defend the right to joy and happiness and fight with this. Because this is for me the most important thing about the indigenous imagination.
Thank you so much, Lucia. I know that you are such an inspiring woman. And well, before we continue with the panel, and I'm literally just feeling the energy, just feeling the emotions. We're going to have a lot of expression, and we're going to feel ourselves in this panel so dearly. But I do want to welcome our fourth speaker for the day, which is Ramiro. Ramiro is part of Reacciona Mexico, which is a youth collective organization around climate and youth mobilization. And yeah, but continuing with the question, hi Ramiro, welcome. And we're among the introductory remarks from our panelists and specifically posing the question about the specific security and peace challenges that youth and communities in vulnerable situations in remote and as minorities that face as a result of climate change, advice, and environmental degradation. But Haley, if you want to take this question to you and introductory remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, good morning. It's the last day of Climate Week. We made it. Give it up. We did it. Thank you so much for your remarks too. I think that my colleague here brings up a really good point, is that when we think of security, at least myself, I come from the United States. I grew up in a city that's known for having a very big military presence. And so my initial thoughts growing up with security was, oh, the military's here, which now I know is not really the only definition of what it means to have a secure life. And what was really meaningful that you just shared to me is something I've been reflecting on, is that having security in the face of climate change is not just being free from climate impacts or being able to adapt to them. It's being able to have joy, experiencing happiness, experience your culture, and experiencing life to the fullest. And when you're not able to do that because of something that's completely avoidable, like climate change, it really is quite challenging and disheartening. And so we're all here on this stage as people who are fighting against that. And I'm sure you're all here in the audience as well, part of this coalition of people that are trying to fight for the human security, but also the security of our planet, because we all know that even if we happen to not get it right, which I hope we do, the bacteria and the planet will probably live on in some way. So what we're really dealing with here with climate change is like a human problem, right? It's human made and it's going to be human solved. And And connecting that to security, I currently live in Hawaii, and though I'm not native Hawaiian by any means, as I mentioned, I grew up in Texas, and the communities there have not only been struggling with a history of colonization and the United States government and missionaries playing a role in that, but they've also been struggling now to be on the land that is their land, to grow their crops, their traditional crops, because of climate change. And they also have a really big military presence and on our land, on their land, you know, and that's not right because they're taking up rightful spots that are theirs. And what's unique is I recently had an experience to go to New Zealand on a youth and peace and security experience with a bunch of other young people in the Pacific. And it was really interesting because I found myself being from Hawaii being like, yeah, we don't need the military here. They're not helping our security. But the other people from the Pacific Islands who have a very different lived experience saying, no, we really appreciate the U.S. Army being there because they protect us from other outside forces, which you can assume what those forces might be. So I think when we're thinking about security, we can't just think about it from one level and what from my country and my perspective might be. It's also really important to think about the other communities around the world that are also vulnerable and experiencing the impacts of climate change, but also other different security risks. And so it's really climate change is a threat multiplier, right? It's going to make all of our security issues a lot worse and more challenging. And we're seeing that with a few things happening around the world. And so I think just as an intro and kind of opening the space, encouraging us to think about this topic through the way that climate change is affecting different communities, but how different communities might be experiencing security risks differently, and just opening up these perspectives.
Yes, thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I think what you mentioned about different perspectives, shared experiences as well as to learn all of these, to share stories, it's really important. That's why we are also here from different backgrounds, from different contexts. And well, just to keep it up for everybody here in the audience as well, at the end of this panel, in like 30 minutes-ish, we're going to do a Q&A so that you can also participate and that you can also either comment, it's a Q&A, but you can comment, you can share your experiences as well, you can share your stories, but you can also question anything that you may find relevant. So that's an invitation for the future so that you can take it. But yes, now we're going to continue with Pedro. I also welcome Joe as her interpreter here so that he can also share his experience and his remarks on the topic.
Baik, terima kasih. Selamat pagi semuanya.
So very well, good morning everyone. Hello.
Di organisasi kita, ya kita mengenal sebuah teriakan yang akan membangkitkan semangat dalam perjuangan mengurus kampung. Ya, saya akan mulai dengan kata itu dulu ya. Ya, jadi biasanya saat kita teriak pemuda adat, kita akan bilang bangkit bersatu bergerak mengurus wilayah adat. Oke, saya akan mulai. Ya. Pemuda adat.
So basically, when we start a meeting like this, we will start by saying, he will say pemuda adat. Pemuda is youth, adat is indigenous, so indigenous youth. So he will say pemuda adat, and he is requesting us to reply.
Bangkit. Bersatu, bergerak, mengurus wilayah adat.
Mengurus is too long actually. So maybe just let us rise together to take care of the indigenous, to protect the indigenous youth. Okay?
Oke, ya saya akan lanjutkan. Bangkit, bersatu, bergerak, mengurus wilayah adat. Oke, saya akan mulai bicara. Krisis iklim. Enggak. Oke, teman-teman sekalian, ya, saya akan berbicara soal masyarakat adat yang di kampung saya. Indonesia itu kita punya 7 region, ya, yang kita sebut Sumatera, Jawa, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Bali Nusra, Kepulauan Maluku hingga Papua.
So I would like to first of all to share and inform you that in Indonesia, speaking about the indigenous communities, we have 7 regions. We call it Sumatra. So we have big islands. We have 7,000 islands, but we have 7 big regions: Sumatra, Kalimantan, Jawa,
Bali Nusa,
Bali, Nusa,
Kepulauan Maluku,
and Maluku Island,
Papua.
and Papua.
Ya, jadi hampir di semua region ini masyarakat adat itu mendapatkan perlakuan yang tidak baik dari pemerintah. Ya, terutama itu langsung dirasakan oleh pemuda adat.
So most of the indigenous youth, they have been treated not well by the government. The government is not treating them well.
Berbicara tentang cara mengurus wilayah adat, ya jauh sebelum negara ini ada, bahkan masyarakat adat, kita pemuda adat ini, itu sudah melakukan kerja-kerja mengurus kampung kita, menjaga keanekaragaman hayati, yang sampai hari ini tetap kita jaga.
So even before our country is existing, we are, as the indigenous youth, we are the one who have preserved the biodiversity that we have in our communities. It's not just the work of the government, but that we as indigenous youth, we have been doing those works.
Namun dalam upaya mengurus kampung, menjaga wilayah adat kita, seringkali kita dibentrokan dengan tentara, dengan polisi, ya, dengan preman-preman yang dibayar oleh negara, yang pada akhirnya masyarakat adat itu dikriminalisasi.
What happened to us as the indigenous youth is that we are being criminalized. We are being persecuted by the military, by the police. That's what happened to the indigenous youth in our communities.
Saya akan mencontohkan satu kasus yang terjadi di Indonesia.
I would like to give you one example of this happened in Indonesia.
Jika teman-teman tahu kasus Sorbatua Sialagan,
We have heard the case of the Sorbatua Sialagan, that is the name of a person.
adalah seorang tokoh adat yang kemudian harus ditangkap karena menjaga wilayah adatnya sendiri.
He is the leaders of the indigenous people in Indonesia who is being arrested by the government for the reason of, protecting his own land, his own communities.
Sebagai pemuda adat, kita harus menjaga wilayah adat kita, yang kemudian menjaga orang tua kita juga dari serangan-serangan seperti itu.
And as the indigenous youth, we also need to protect our leaders as part of our contribution to also protect our land and communities.
Namun dalam upaya itu, ya, kita pemuda adat juga ikut dikriminalisasi, juga ikut diserang oleh negara bersama preman-preman yang mereka bayar.
But in that effort to protect our land, to protect our elders, we also, as the indigenous youth, have been attacked by the government and by the state, by the policy and military.
Ya, sampai hari ini itu tetap terjadi. Nah, pemuda,
And it's still happening up to date.
nah saat kita melakukan upaya untuk menjaga wilayah adat kita, ya, kita melakukan sebuah pendidikan adat, kita melakukan penggalian identitas kita sendiri, itu seringkali kita diserang oleh negara, oleh tentara, oleh polisi.
And when we want to maintain our identity as the indigenous youth, we again have been attacked many times by the government when we are trying to maintain that identity as the indigenous youth.
Tentara Indonesia itu punya ya sebuah apa namanya kata-kata ya yang berisikan yang bahasanya itu TNI kuat bersama rakyat.
So there's actually a slogan of the Indonesian Army saying that together with the society we will be strong.
Ya, tapi itu hanya omong kosong.
But that is just nonsense.
Ya, jadi diberangkat dari kasus ini, saya kira peran-peran pemuda adat dalam melakukan upaya menjaga wilayah adatnya, kita butuh sebuah ruang ya untuk menyampaikan hal ini kepada dunia.
So as an indigenous youth, we need to have space to talk about this to the world, about what we are experiencing right now.
Ya, saya kira forum-forum itu sudah disediakan, salah satunya di forum ini, ya.
And I believe that forum is there, and one of the forum is this one.
Kita ingin menyampaikan kepada dunia bahwa pemuda adat itu harus diperhatikan lagi.
We want to shout out to the world that we need to pay attention on indigenous youth.
Semua tentang pemuda itu sangat penting karena kita berbicara soal generasi, soal masa depan.
Because when we are talking about the indigenous youth, it is a very important topic because we are talking about the future generation.
Saya kira kita harus terus merawat forum-forum seperti ini, ya kita beritahukan kepada dunia bahwa masyarakat adat hari ini itu sedang tidak baik-baik saja.
So I think we can utilize this forum to, to convey this message to the world that Indigenous people, the indigenous youth condition situation is not in a right condition right now. We are not in a good terms right now.
Ya, dan pemuda adat sebagai generasi penerus ya, kita yang akan memimpin dunia ini selanjutnya. Kita akan memimpin negara, kita akan menjaga wilayah adat kita seterusnya.
So we, as the future generation, the indigenous youth, we will be the future leaders who's going to protect the communities.
Jadi kita selalu membutuhkan ruang ya untuk menyampaikan aspirasi kita, untuk menyampaikan masalah-masalah yang dihadapi oleh pemuda adat yang kemudian masuk untuk dalam ruang-ruang politik.
Yes, again, we need this kind of space so that we can convey our message.
Ya, saya kira begitu. Terima
I
kasih.
think that's what I said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, yes. Thank you. And thank you so much. I think, oh my God, I'm feeling like the emotion, inspiration. I think it's so important to have this platform and visibility and to show the world and the people and to shout out outside to the governments, to our international community that we are here all together from different countries, from different governments, so that we can support each other in a way that you mentioned it. We need to protect our protectors, right? The protectors of the land, which are mainly the indigenous communities and the indigenous youth that will become through the live and they slowly will protect. And this is such an inspiration story so that we can help and so that we can unite and we can work and push everyone forward in union and unity. So yes, I would love to get into that in a specific. I do want Ramiro to talk about his introductory remarks and his context, his thoughts on the topic on security and the community and the environment and the relation with climate impact.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this. I'm Ramiro and I'm from, my dad is from, it's Campeche, it's an indigenous community, Maya community in Campeche, and my mom is from Yoana, Oaxaca. It's a community in the central zone of the Oaxaca, and we have two different contexts about of the problems in the two different communities, right? Because I think it's important about it's important to talk about more about how the I think it's difficult to describe the change faced by young people involved in rural communities because it's dependent a lot on the context. Right? For example, the problem faced by young people in Tabasco, Mexico is different to the problems in the Michoacan youth, right? For example, in Tabasco, we have a problem with the with the territory, and in Michoacan, we have a problem with the narco state. And it's a difference. I think that more than talking about the main problems, we should talk about how system actions make communities more vulnerable, more exposed, and not take into account, right? I think it's. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramiro. And if you want to comment, Lucia? Okay, just before we continue, I do want to pose this question now that everybody is like seated, now that we have the motion going on. I do want to further get deep down on your stories and your context. Any more thing that we need to be civilized in this kind of panels, in this kind of platforms, but specifically, what are your stories and what you can also learn from others in the terms of resilience and adaptation from your communities, from the communities that have been influenced on the approach of addressing climate challenges, and what lessons can be shared with others as well, and how are these collaborative approaches have inspired positive change in your communities regarding all of the effects from climate change, from persecution, which is really aggravated, specifically from the global south, indigenous communities, and from our context from Latin America. We can also say this is really dangerous to be a climate activist, and it's much more dangerous if you're from indigenous communities as well. So what can we learn and what can we share with others in this topic of resilience, adaptation, and community building?
Well, when I grew up, my father teach me to respect the forest. When I was very young, I remember the journey of the weekend was walking the mountain near to home. And my father speak to the trees. And I learned that from him. And when we say that we are Quiche, we recognize the tree as our ancestors. That's the reason why my father speak to the trees. When I was a child, I didn't understand too much. But now I understand that. And Quiche, it means many trees in the translation. So when we say that we are Quiche, we recognize that we became from the land, that we became from the territory. In Guatemala, we lived a genocide process during 60 years. And the massacre, the violence, the disposition of our territory is part of the ordinary day. And we have in our territory a lot of histories of that. And I met an ancestor who became from that situation, who was a long time ago in exile, who was a refugee. And she teach me that we have to learn, she said, about the knowledge and the wisdom of the earth. Because she said, when we bring or offer to the land trash, or trash, the air bringing us flowers and fruits. And this is the knowledge of the earth. And it's what she said, when you receive violence, you have to heal. Even if you are a survivor from genocide, you have the possibility to continue in a different way. And when I hear that, it's like, oh my God, yeah, because we begin to organize as Festivales Solidarios, campaign and media and filmmaker, because we discover when we travel in itinerant caravans during the country, defending the land, supporting different communities against mining, against extractive projects, different extractive projects in Guatemala. We discover there is a lot of criminalization, there is a lot of murders, there is a lot of massacres. There is not only the situation that I live in my town, this is part of destructivism, the violence, the disposition. And we say, we're going to use the tools what we have. That's why, as a young activist, we decide to use art, we decide to use mass media, the social media, to denounce what are happening, but also to invite to create different things. So for me, the people who continue till today defending the territory in different ways and trying to heal even that violence is one of the most important learning in my life and in my process as a young land defender activist. We need to learn and connect with the wisdom of our ancestors, with the wisdom of the land, if we want to create different things. Because I'm very agree about what you say, there is a humanity emergency. The planet is going to continue without us, and we know that. But the most important is recognize that, and in a collective way, try to create in a diversity strategies, different strategies. So for me, this is the most important learning that I have about resilience, that I have about to create and imagine different things. And now, of course, we are using the filmmaker movement, we are using the cinema, we are using our cameras, we are using our phones to tell stories, to denounce, but also to create something beautiful to tell stories. I have to leave the country because the work that I do. Guatemala is a dictatorship, and I'm on exile. And I discovered in that journey, the lands are inside of me. My forests are inside of me. And this is a part of the healing, but also part of the learning. We can continue doing your work, even outside of territories. Because when I discovered that I can be returned to home, I say what I do, who I am without my territory, who I am without my land. But I say I am, I exist. And the forests are in me.
I do want to comment on that. That was so powerful. And literally, everything that you said, everything about connection, everything about learning from the knowledge and the wisdom of earth, to really knowing and realizing and visualizing that there's violence of systemic extractivism and environmental destruction that it involves towards the defenders, towards our protectors of the land, and how we need to heal in community, heal through storytelling, through the art, through the creation, through everything that we're so passionate about. Thank you so much, Lucia. Haley, if you want to comment or continue with our conversation.
I have to follow that. No, that was really, really great. And I think something that I want to kind of touch on is just two quick stories. The first is, I mentioned that I recently moved to, I guess I've been there for 3 years, to Hawaii. And being there has been the first time that I've been around community of people, of Indigenous people who have really shown me what it's like to care for the land. Before we do any work, we say a chant called E Homai, and it's a welcoming chant for the wisdom of the land and to be open and to kind of leave everything at the door and just be present with ourselves, what we can learn from the ancestors that were there before us. And it got me thinking, you know, where is my origin story? Where did my people come from? Because my ancestry is not in the United States. It's back from many different places. And so I read this book called The Stories in Our Bones. And for anyone who maybe has a similar experience to me, has not been connected with their origins for whatever reason that might exist. People have been moved forcibly before. People have migrated because of persecution. That was my ancestry's experience, being persecuted and having to give up and leave our origins behind. And those stories, unfortunately, a lot of them were lost. And so I think that what we're hearing is really powerful. So when we connect with our origin stories, for those of us that connection has been lost to globalization or whatever forces might be, there's real power in that, because we all have, in one way or another, connections to land that our communities and our ancestry came from. It's just been kind of let go along the way. And so I think being, for me, around and learning from the Indigenous people of Hawaii has been a really great opportunity to think more deeply about what is my role as someone who's not Indigenous to that land but lives there. We all have a responsibility to uplift these voices, to protect the land defenders, to talk about it openly with the communities, because we all have a role to play in shaping policies and making sure that they are inclusive of all of these different perspectives. And we also have a role in the healing. You know, I did not create the problems that the United States has been doing in the world, right? It's not me. But being from there, I have an opportunity to go to my government, to go to my policymakers and to tell them this is not right, or to even become one day and help try to heal the harms that we have done to the best of my ability. Because we know people in our generation, they're always saying, you know, you're going to solve these crises. And I really believe that we are, because we are the most inclusive generation that has ever existed. And we're also the most open and willing to listen and to say, hey, you know, this wasn't me, but it was wrong. What can we do? how can we support you? And I think for those of you that are like me in the room that are not indigenous to the land that you're currently on, but have origin stories, I encourage you to try to uncover those, try to learn, and also take a step back to listen to the people here, to ask them how you can support their work, but do not expect them to have to explain their whole entire history to you. Just acknowledge and be that they're here, risking their lives a lot of times to be in these spaces. And so I just want to say thank you to the other panelists that are here, that are Indigenous, that are fighting a much different fight than I am, but note that I am in solidarity with them to hear their stories and to uplift them. That's a part we can all play no matter where we come from.
Thank you so much, Hailey. I do agree. We'll often think about what we can do also as young individuals. We're really lost every time about our path in our life. But it's important to know that we have to live, we have to echo, we have to ensure their representation, not through our voices, but ensure that their voices are there in the decision-making processes, in the policy-making. All about connection to the land, to our ancestors, and learn from what role are we playing here? What is our responsibility in this shared world? But yes, thank you so much. So many things to learn from. And if we're going to continue with her, and then we're going to make it an audience and interactive discussion.
Oke, dulu ya, waktu saya kecil, saya tuh mendengar nenek saya itu ya kalau padi nyampe ke rumah, dia itu menyambut padi dengan kata-kata, saya tekan dalam bahasa Indonesia, naiklah padi yang akan disambut raja, naiklah putih yang akan disambut raja. Ya, jadi itu merupakan sebuah penghormatan kepada padi ataupun tanaman ataupun sumber daya yang ada, ya, dan itu bisa menjaga kedaulatan pangan masyarakat adat sampai hari ini.
Okay, so I would like to share about a story that I was a child. So I remember that my grandma used to teach us about this particular habit, where we need to respect the rice that is being carried from the paddy field to our home. So when the rice is coming to our home, we need to shout in Bahasa Indonesia. He mentioned that we need to give respect to the rice. So that is one of the the value that I learned from my grandma, and that is one of the value that is being passed to our generations. So as the youth, Indigenous youth, so that we can also pass it to the next generation. So this is something that we preserve the sovereignty of the Indigenous people.
Dan setibanya padi ini di rumah, kita akan memasukkan ke dalam lumbung padi.
So when the rice is upright in the house, we will put it in the barn.
Ya, dan setelah nyampe di dalam lumbung, kita akan ya seperti menyayangi anak sendiri.
So we will receive the rice and then we will pat the rice. It's like we are, patting our own child, so showing our love and care to the rice, like we show our care and love to our child.
Itulah yang dilakukan nenek saya dulu.
So that's what my grandma did.
Dan hari ini saya mengerti dan kita juga mempraktekkan itu bahwa apa yang kita lakukan adalah bentuk penghormatan kepada tanaman, tumbuhan, dan juga kepada bumi.
So I did not understand that times, but now I do understand that what my grandma was trying to show us, to teach us, is that we need to respect the natural resources, the plants that we have in our territory. So because starting with the respect, we will be able to respect ourselves and our territory.
Nah, di organisasi saya, di BPAN, kita melakukan sebuah gerakan yang namanya itu gerakan pulang kampung.
So in my organization, as the Indigenous youth, we have a movement, we call it as a homecoming movement.
Nah, di gerakan pulang kampung ini, kita itu mempraktekkan banyak hal dalam upaya menjaga wilayah adat.
So in this homecoming movement, we did lots of things in our effort to really protect our territory.
Jadi gerakan pulang kampung itu ya adalah gerakan yang memanggil pemuda-pemuda yang berada di kota, ya yang cenderung belajar, ya ataupun mereka lagi ada kegiatan dan lain-lain, kemudian pulang ke kampung untuk mengurus kampungnya lagi.
So a homecoming movement is a movement, a call for the indigenous youth who have been studying outside the territory, outside the communities. So this is a call for them to come back to the communities, to the territory, to protect and to contribute to their own territory.
Gerakan pulang kampung ini sekaligus juga menepis ya stigma-stigma negatif terhadap pemuda-pemuda kalau pulang kampung itu nggak bisa ngapa-ngapain.
Because we want to show that as the indigenous youth, when we are coming back to our communities, there is a stigma that when we're coming back, we cannot do anything to our own communities. But we want to against that stigma, and that's why this homecoming movement was established to fight that stigma.
Ya, padahal gerakan pulang kampung ini adalah gerakan yang bisa kita lakukan, ya. Kita harus melakukan banyak hal. Hal itu seperti menjaga wilayah adat kita, ya, dengan melakukan praktek kedaulatan pangan. Kita bisa menanam, kita bisa berkebun, kita bisa beternak, kita bisa menjaga wilayah adat kita, bisa bertenun, ya, bisa berburu dan lain-lain.
So in this homecoming movement, there are lots of things and efforts that we can do as indigenous youths. Among other is like we can planting, we can hunting, we can also do other things that we, the purpose is to preserve the area that we live in.
Ya, dan juga kita bisa melakukan pemetaan wilayah adat kita sendiri.
And we can also do the mapping on our territory.
Tentunya pemetaan yang partisipatif.
Participative mapping.
Ya, karena yang dilakukan negara ya di Indonesia dan saya kira di negara lain juga mereka itu melakukan pemetaan yang tidak partisipatif.
Because what the government did to us, or the state did to us, is that their mapping is not participative, it's not engaging us as the indigenous people.
Yang seringkali melanggar prinsip FP, ya, meaningful participation.
Violating the meaningful participation, the AFPIC,
Iya, dan prinsip-prinsip lainnya.
and other principles.
Nah, sedangkan ya yang kita lakukan, pemuda adat ini, kita menjaga wilayah adat kita, melakukan pemetaan partisipatif, ya, kita menjaga bagaimana caranya tanah kita ini, ya, itu tetap menjadi milik kita.
So, as the indigenous youth, we're actually participating in the mapping process. We want this mapping process of the indigenous territory to be participative, especially for the youth, the indigenous youth.
Nah, di BPN kita juga punya yang namanya gerakan, itu bagian dari gerakan pulang kampung itu menelusuri jejak leluhur.
So we also have another movement in our organization. We call it as tracing the path of our ancestors.
Nah, menelusuri jejak leluhur ini salah satunya praktek yang saya bilang tadi adalah melakukan pemetaan partisipatif, kemudian menggali identitas kita sebagai masyarakat adat, dan melakukan profiling data-data komunitas kita.
Yeah, what we did is we are trying to collect data by conducting, profiling the community so we can collect the data. And then so from there, we will be able to, digging more on our identity. And then we can do a follow-up action, which is a participative mapping.
Ya, karena kita itu mengenal di gerakan masyarakat adat Indonesia, di AMAN dan di BPAN, kita itu sering bilang petakan wilayah adat sebelum dipetakan orang lain.
So the call that we always convey to the world is that we need to map our territory before it is being mapped by others.
Ya, dengan menjaga wilayah adat kita, ya, dengan melakukan pemetaan terhadap wilayah adat kita, dengan itu adalah cara kita menjaga tanah kita, ya, biar tidak dirampas oleh negara.
So mapping the territory is one way, one means that we can use so that our land will not be grabbed by the government.
Karena memang dari dulu hingga ini ya yang dilakukan oleh negara itu hanya mengklaim.
Because what the government did, they just claim our land.
Sedangkan masyarakat adat ini sudah ada bahkan sebelum negara ini ada.
Meanwhile, actually, we have been seen before, way before the state, the country itself existing.
Ya, dan upaya praktek-praktek yang saya sampaikan tadi di gerakan pulang kampung, kita itu ingin menyampaikan bahwa apa yang menjadi milik kita itu harus kita pertahankan.
Throughout the homecoming movement, we want to say that we need to defend what we have as the indigenous people.
Karena apa yang kita lakukan bukan hanya untuk kita masyarakat adat, tapi juga untuk bumi, untuk dunia, untuk menjaga wilayah adat.
Because what we are doing is not just for us, ourselves, but it's also for the earth, for the world, and also for sure for the indigenous people.
Saya kira itu. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dad, for the collecting of the data, for the mapping of the territories, and for the indigenous youth to be more participatory aside from the governmental processes that are not inclusive of all. So yes, a lot of learning on that. I still want to continue finish with Ramiro, so that we can have maybe one comment or one question, if not. But yes, Ramiro is going to talk in Spanish,
Yeah.
and I'm going to interpret.
Hola, pues bueno, siguiendo con la misma conversación y con lo que hablaban aquí en el panel, a mí me gustaría como que tal vez contextualizar un poco de mi parte. Tanto mi mamá como mi papá dejaron sus territorios para buscar como mejores oportunidades para sus hijos. Sin embargo, para sus hijos y para sus nietos, ¿no? Sin embargo, esas mejores oportunidades han ido acompañadas con un mensaje de valoración y respetar tanto a mis ancestros como respetar a la vida, respetar a los ríos y respetar los espacios. Dentro de esto, de parte de mi mamá principalmente, siempre hablamos sobre un respeto por la vida y un respeto por la muerte, porque también veneramos a los que ya no están con nosotros, que han luchado y han estado en este tipo de procesos. Y a mí me gustaría como abordar cómo cada vez que uno trata de participar en diferentes espacios, son más las opresiones o las barreras que le ponen a la gente para poder hacerlo. Por ejemplo, yo me acuerdo que la primera vez que fui consciente de la lucha que tenemos que hacer como personas racializadas de diferentes territorios, fue hasta que entré a la universidad, que me di cuenta que a pesar de decir que era un espacio donde había gente intelectual, por así decirlo, era el espacio más opresor en el que había estado, el espacio donde no podíamos de hecho participar, no podíamos, y si lo hacías era motivo de burla, básicamente. Entonces, bueno, quería como que aportar dentro de esto. Y pues se pone un poquito más complicado en la parte de la solución y las falsas soluciones, porque la misma gente de estos espacios que se creen superiores piensa que realmente no podemos pensar y hablar por nuestros espacios y para proteger nuestros territorios, y llegan con falsas soluciones creyendo decir lo que necesitamos o lo que debemos hacer, siendo que realmente y nos lo venden de esa forma, y nosotros tenemos que luchar por demostrar que eso no es. Y ya.
I will try to say everything in English really fast, but yes, his grandparents have to leave the territory to give a better life to their grandchildren and their children because they were persecuted, because they were discriminated,